Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming from doorway to doorway. This is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, and so I'm going to start with a prayer. But before we do that, I would like to ask of you to get any medicine that you might need to help support yourself. If it's um, if it's sage, if it's cedar, if it's copal, however you can support yourself. Maybe if there's an essential oil that you like, something that um, can will help you with that process. Because some of the conversations we'll be having are can be pretty triggering. They can be very triggering. Hi guys, and so we just never know what's going to come up, whether it's a story of our grandmother or a story of our aunties, whatever they've gone through, or our own personal stories. Uh, the scarring that we have is real and deep, and so I just want to give everyone an opportunity to go get that for yourself. Make sure you have your water and all of that before we start the prayer. So I'll go ahead and get what you need. All right, I'm ready to begin. I have my medicine bundle here. I'm going to light for you all today. In our way down here, we use in Tucson, we use what we call shogi, and it's the creosote, the greasewood. Creator God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together in a good way like this, in a holy way, speaking of healing things for the woman's womb and for the woman's body, for the female body, for the transgender body, that we can take care of these things, in a good way, that we can talk about these scars and talk about these wounds in a loving way, in a holy way, and in a way that will help us remember the path that the healing path that we're on. Remember that healing path, and to move forward in a confident way and in a good way, a good grounded way. I ask that everyone here today is blessed from doorway to doorway, from window to window. That whatever is said here today will bless them and will carry them forward in this time of pandemic, in this time of loss, and in this time of celebration as well. These healing things that are happening alongside the losses. So I thank you for each and every one of the relatives here today and their children, if they're watching as well. I ask that these words and these teachings will help bless them and help them understand how to take care of their families as well. So in that good way, I ask for blessings for each and everyone here today, and that we will feel good throughout the talk, and feel at ease, feeling at ease with this knowledge, and feel the blessings of understanding our deeper wisdoms within our body, and that we can move forward in a strong way, in a solid way, with our chin up um, and our feet on the ground, and feeling the beauty of creation around us, because we feel more balanced. I ask that today for everyone here, from doorway to doorway. Aho Tatakese, Aho Tatokomati, Aho Musapo. Thank you. um, so I'll just start with sharing a little bit about myself. My name is Traci Faith Hughes Hamilton Guth Thonalig, and um, I've been doing massage and body work for about 25 years, and all of that time, it's all been about women's work and birth work and doula work, and so working mainly with my family and my loved ones, and then creating a foundation of deeper understandings of healing ways. And you know, I feel like my journey really started when I'm laying there in the sun and I'm in massive pain, and I'm thinking, there's no way that we carried water. There's no way that we birthed babies outdoors. um, and all of these strong things that we have to do, there's no way we did it in this kind of pain, this kind of agony, this kind of, I refuse to believe that that was going to be the rest of my life. And I was 14 when I decided that, and it took me a little over 20 years to figure it out. But I eventually was able to heal my womb, and I no longer live in pain at all. No more pain for me, no more cramps, and no more bloating, no more breast tenderness, and you know, all of these things. And so about 15 years ago is when I really got serious about it, in terms of just more studying and really reaching out to grandmas um, and the, you know, looking for the older knowledge around me. And I was really directed to the plants. I was very much directed to the plants. And by way of my father, you know, I told him, I said, Dad, I've been a massage therapist for a while now, and I like it. I've been able to help people, and it feels like it's what I'm going to do. But I know there's more, and I really want to heal my womb, and I want to heal in a deeper way. So I think I'm going to go to acupuncture school. And I love telling this story because he's like, you don't need to go to China. You don't need to go to China to learn these old ways. We have old ways. We have old ways. We have, you know, you talk to the plants, you ask grandmas, you really get out there and you look for it because it's there. And I was like, I don't know. Nobody's really talking about it. So you know, so it was rough at first, trying to find out. And everyone's like, well, why do you want to know that? You know, here she comes, she's gonna ask those weird questions again. And so it was rough at first, but then once my family started seeing, you know, through attending my niece's births and my nephew's wives' births and things, they really started seeing, oh, she's serious. And that's good. They saw that, because then they were willing to help direct me somewhere and all of that. So anyhow, so here we are today, and by way of helping people heal, women, female-bodied men, and men themselves too. What has really stood out is the scarring and the deep scarring that that can twist up inside our bodies. And so when I was interested in speaking about the scar tissue and how it affects our internal organs and our internal chemistry, I was really on a path of this anti-hysterectomy campaign. This, I'm really, that's my, you know, passion, to save your womb, you know, to save our wombs. And also to help out where I can, if the womb is no longer present, and then the, you know, the scar tissue has just become unmanageable. So in the light of birth work, and in the light of C-sections and VBACs and those types of things, I decided to formulate my talk around that. You know, keeping the womb intact, of course, is the primary focus of birth work, you know, so I feel like it absolutely relates. And there's an experience recently that got me really, really focused on talking about C-sections and scar tissue. A woman got hold of me. She lives in a non-urban location, and it was her either fifth or sixth pregnancy. And she was told not to get pregnant one more time because every single birth had been a C-section. Well, what happened is that her womb was intensely embedded into her abdominal wall, and it was embedded in a way that they could not do a C-section. They could not do a hysterectomy. The scar tissue had made the uterine wall pretty much completely meshed with her abdominal wall. And if this baby were to grow to term, it would be fatal. And so they gave her the abortion pill to help pass this this fetus, and prayers for that little one. It was really hard on that family, and they did their best to take care of that little one, and ask it to go, and with prayer, and beauty, and goodness in their hearts, and so. But when she had called me, the fetus had not released from the womb, somehow that scar tissue had linked into the tiny fetus, and it wasn't shedding. So without going into detail of what we did, we were able to get that little one out of there for her, and her body was able to heal. And we were also able to have conversations about what it means to have healthy sexual activity. We were able to talk about different ways of intimacy that the husband was really not interested in, and how to advocate for herself with that in a gentle way. How to speak her truth and take care of her body, and how to bring her husband into that conversation. And I never spoke with him myself, unfortunately. So that's one thing that I really see too that affects our scar tissuing is our support structures and our support systems. And so it's, it really goes down, it really comes to those things of who we surround ourselves with, and how they support us, and how can we create that balance within our lives, and surround ourselves with people who are going to be healing for us. It doesn't matter if they have addictive natures or not. How are they supporting us in healing ways, and how are we supporting one another in moving forward? For me, like I'm saying earlier, it was a little bit tricky for my family to understand really what I was doing, because my dad at first, he really thought that massage had everything. It was just prostitution. That's it. And we know now that massage has really has a big place in our healing worlds. And we also know that a lot of our indigenous healing ways, and a lot of our, out this way we call them makais, a lot of our makais and medicine people had massage backgrounds, that they were handed down through their family. They had massage techniques. And so that's one thing that my dad did have to remember. And so re-educating your family, and getting through that, breaking down those barriers of what the family has understood to be healing, has been really tricky, right? So there have been times where I've had to separate myself from my family so that I could do the healing I needed to do, and then come back with that intact, and to be able to have language for it, to be able to have language about what I was accomplishing within my own body, so that I can help women and birthing bodies. And so that's where I'm at with my passion for it, and where my heart is. One thing we really have to understand, and we hear this all the time, everything's connected, you know, your hip bone's connected to your neck bone, and all these things. But it really is true. And it's true because Creator has made us intrinsically connected by way of our internal spider web, you know, our webbing that that connects our cranial cavity, our brain cavity, to our toes. And you know, the anatomy of our bodies is a very sacred thing. You know, we're wired to be connected to creation, and we're wired to be able to heal through prayer and distance healing. You know, and so when we add those things into our, you know, we add those indigenous teachings into our mindset of healing ways, and not just looking outside of ourselves for healing, that we are connected to these things. We can talk to our waters, we can talk to our spider web, and we can heal those things that that have become constricted and stuck, and we feel like we're cursed. You know, we feel like you know, we can go and we can get a good cleansing or a good blessing, and then the rest of the work is up to us. You know, so here I am to talk to you about what that other part of that looks like. You know, if you have access to different blessings, can you please give an example of how you separated from your family without adding? Oh, okay. So there's a question that asked if I could give an example of how I separated from my family, and yeah. Okay. Is any of my family here? That's a sensitive topic. No. So, well, I was careful of what I talked about when I was with them. That's a way of preserving that really worked for me. Being careful of the amount of knowledge I share, or what I'm doing, keeping it real simple and real basic. And also, well, luckily, I feel like luckily, pandemic, we can be a little bit separate sometimes, so we don't have to, you know, we don't have to, they don't have to know everything that we're doing, you know, so that we can take that time away. But for I didn't live in a multi-generational home when I did my healing, and so I had to go to my grandmas and go to my grandpas and go to my aunties and things like that. And so how I feel about, you know, when you're at home and you're trying to do these healing ways and these healing things for yourself, the best place that you can really do that is the bathroom. You know, and the bathroom really is a holy place. You know, that's a place where we wash our body. It's a place where we wash ourselves, we wash our teeth, we wash our bodies, we cleanse our bodies with our bowel movements, and, you know, and all those things. You know, and so if nothing else, that is one place that, you know, you can do some healing work for yourself. For me, looking in the mirror was always really triggering because I don't look like anybody on my dad's side, and I don't look like anybody on my mom's side, because my mom's side is Caucasian and my dad's side is Native. And so it was hard for me to look at myself in the mirror sometimes. And so I would cover the mirror if I ever did anything in the bathroom, because I just wanted to feel myself and my body without an image attached to it. And a lot of people didn't, you know, when I tell people things like that, they're like, oh, but you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror, and, you know, it's important, you're beautiful, and you're this, you're that. But it's also triggering when you grow up, in a mixed community, you know, are mixed, because you go from reservation to city, or you go from each family member you know, and everybody has their own way of doing things and the way they look at you and the way they want you to be or the way they want to raise you. And so for me, it was just not looking in the mirror, and it was looking inside, you know, and so that's where I did a lot of my work. My healing work was in the bathroom, you know, if you have access to a bathtub, or if you don't. Um, so uh, I mentioned moving your water, and so that's something that through by way of one of my teachers. Is she here? I think I saw her. My teacher, Patricia, where are you? There she is. Hi, hi Nina. um, oh, she just sunk down. um, so one of the things that we've practiced that we've talked a lot about is how water moves through your body, and when you can talk to your waters and ask them to cleanse out, to change things, and to move things in a good way, they'll listen. It takes time, it takes consistency, it takes patience. But when you can talk to your waters, it's really powerful. And we know about talking to water as Indigenous people. We know about talking with water as Indigenous people. You know, and if you don't know about that as an Indigenous person, then that's something that it'll be good for you to understand as a human being, right? That we are water. You know, we are water. Um, so I really like this image of the hands because you know, she has, he or she, whoever these hands are, have dirt in the fingernails. You can tell that they've been working. They're brown hands, and they're beautiful. And this image to me speaks to so much, because you can see where the water has become one with her skin, with their skin, and you can see how it's separate from the skin and is puddling as well and reflecting light and all these things. And so when I talk to you about moving your water, I want you to do this exercise. You know, I want you to do this exercise. Um, you know, get water in your hands. Hold that water in your hands and feel it. And close your eyes and just feel that water in your hands. And know that that's the same water inside your body. You know, that's the same water deep within your scar tissue. You know, it's the same water that hydrates your blood, and it's the same water that hydrates your spine. You know, it's the same water, you know, that travels throughout the earth. You know, the water never stops. You know, it never stops flowing. And same thing with our blood, you know, it never stops flowing, just like the water. And so holding that water in your hands and with your eyes closed, you can feel that water trickle and drip in those areas. And with the water, with your hands in a bowl, you can wave that water back and forth. You can do it in the bathtub, you can do it in your sink. You know, just do a little bit before you're going to wash your face, and just, you know, before you bless yourself, you can give yourself a blessing, a water blessing, and you just swish that water back and forth, and and embody, take in that feeling of what that water feels like in your hands. Feel that water just, you know, back and forth, real gentle, you know, like the Hawaiian water people, you know. Move your hands in there and feel that water, and let it speak to you, you know, and and you'll start to have dreams. You'll start to have connections to the water uh, that are deep within your body, that is part of that healing process. So understanding, you know, we are water. We speak these things. You know, we talk about these things. There's T-shirts that say these things. Standing Rock, you know, protecting the water, and so we know this, and taking this a step further into understanding how to move our waters within our body. Those are our old ways of understanding that, and calling on that water to hydrate your scars, and to move out inflammation, and to move out metabolic waste and toxicities that are keeping your scar tissue rigid, or keeping your scar tissue hot. So if you have any sort of pelvic scars that have that are continuously red and continuously puffy, that redness and inflammation is an indication that your scarring is continuing to build. Okay, and so as it's building and building and building, that inflammation is really hanging out there. And what scar tissue has the ability to do, just like the spider web, is you pull from the furthest location, and the vibration will be felt at the very end. So that's what scar tissue does too. As it's building, and it's going to be pulling on that farthest location. Okay, and the farthest location is coming all the way up into your jaw, all the way up into the top of your head and the back of your head. And this is where migraines come from. You know, migraines come from adhesions and scar tissue buildups within the body that constrict your blood flow and constrict your nerve supply. And so that's why it affects your vision and your eyes, because it's deeper inside, you know. And so understanding that spider web, and how it moves through our body, and how it comes out from the ombligo, from the belly button, and stretches all the way down into the womb, and goes down into the feet, comes up into your nose, and down your chest, up into your armpits, up into your hands. It's a very intricate network. There are some people that came up with a what is it called? It's called anatomy trains, and in the anatomy trains, they map out how this fascia, how this connective tissue travels through your body. And one of the frontal lines, and one that I've worked for many years, that I didn't know was part of this fascia line. It was just how I saw the body. And it comes from the pubic bone, it passes up through your abdomen, comes around your neck, and comes around the back, and attaches behind your ears. And that's something that I've been seeing, you know. So then that just goes back to reminding us of how ancient our bodies are, you know. Our bodies haven't changed at all in the last 10,000 years. It's pretty much the same makeup. And so then that conversation gets into eating wisely and eating indigenously, you know. Staying away from the processed foods, because that's not even how we ate 100 years ago, you know. And so our bodies have become really sick. And so if we can incorporate those old foods, the however your culture believes, you know, and however your culture, whether you're fish people, we're cactus people, you're corn people, you know, however, you know, try what you can to incorporate those old foods into your diet, to help your body's inflammation. Okay. And when you're helping your body's inflammation calm down, you're helping your water move. You know, and so that's what you want to be able to do, is you want to be able to help your water move. You know, if you're eating processed foods and you're eating those things of the modern world, your water's not moving very well. It's fighting, it's trying really hard to get to where it needs to go, and heal your organs. Even every single system in our bodies, even our organs, are surrounded by these membranes. So like if for anybody who's you know, used to cutting meat and cleaning meat, you know, those long white membranes that you see in between the pieces of meat, you know, those are the same things that we have. And that's where the scar tissue builds. And it can penetrate deep into your colon. It can penetrate deep into your chest cavity. It can constrict your organs. It can contribute to immune deficiencies, as well as, like I was saying, as well as migraines, you know, from head to toe, from head to toe. So when we have C-sections, and you know, they used to do the vertical cut that goes from your belly button down to your pubic bone. We see a lot of those with elder women, right? And in some ways, I like that cut because it's along the diastasis, you know. But what happens when you cut into the abdominals like that, or when you cut into the womb like that, is a different story, you know. So with the C-section that they predominantly do is the line right above the pubic bone. It follows more of the lines of the pelvis, and so in a way, that line is good in some ways. But if you're not doing intentional healing after your C-section, and you get right back to lifting babies, other babies that you have in the house, if you get right back to vacuuming, you get right back to doing things. I've seen many women right after a C-section get right back to doing things, and you know, they didn't take their 40 days time to heal their womb and allow that scar tissue to build properly. And sometimes we don't have the opportunity to do that. But if you have the opportunity to allow that scarring to heal, you won't have the embedding that happens very intensely. Because when you start healing too soon, or when you have that downward pressure, it causes those pulls that are really unnatural, you know. And I'm not here to tell you that you can't be, you know, a strong woman, you can't lift things, but what it's really about is the downward pressure in your womb. It's not about, oh, you can't lift things because you're weak, because you're not weak. When you're protecting your womb, you're protecting yourself for a lifetime, you know. Let the heavy lifters in your family let them do the heavy lifting, or get support and get help, you know. You may be used to moving chairs and moving things, but if you're going to move forward with protecting your womb, it's really important that that whether you've had a C-section or not, whether you've had pelvic surgery or not, that you're very, very careful with your lifting, because heavy lifting will cause downward pressure on your womb, and it can cause dysfunction with your womb, and adhesions and scar tissues within your womb that will pull on your hips, either hips, your sacrum, your pubic bone, and your organs. However the scar tissue builds in your particular body, however it builds in your particular body will pull, you know. When I'm working on people, I'll be working on the pubic bone, and they'll be like, oh my God, Traci, that's weird. I felt that behind my ear, or I felt that in my armpit, or I felt that. I said, yeah, good, because that's where you needed to feel it. That's where you needed to feel it. And so understanding that that's your body's webbing inside, you know, and how it was affected, and how it's affected. The reason why it's affected these ways is it has a lot to do with what you experienced in the womb, and your family trauma, your family genetic, or not genetic, well, it can become genetic, but but your family historical trauma, you know, it's within your bones and within your waters. And so understanding that and helping it move, just acknowledging it and helping it move. I really want to encourage you too that try not to get into why things happened, right? Oh, why me? Or because the answers to that are really, sometimes there are no answers to that. But understanding where you need to go from where you are and acknowledge your body in a good way. Thank you. Thank you for getting me this far. Thank your womb. Thank your scar tissue for building to protect you, because that's what it is doing. Your scar tissue, your body's intelligence is building that scar tissue to help protect you. But what happens is it's this negative feedback loop that will it will continue to build to protect you if you're not taking precautions to keep down inflammation, to be careful of heavy lifting, all of those things. So there was a question here. Let me see that real quick. I've had 3 C-sections and was unable to allow my womb to heal properly and was back at my daily routine after 3-4 days of rest. Is there anything I can do now to promote healing? Yes, thank you for asking that question, because many of us do find ourselves in that position. So, so let me get to my slides. I just wanna, sounds like somebody said, sounds like what our protective mechanisms do when we experience trauma. Yes, absolutely. Our protective mechanisms will do that. You know, even as simple as a callus on your foot, you know, you get scratched, you get cut, and then it builds a callus there. And the same thing happens internally, and the same thing happens emotionally. We build up these bonds to protect us. So this is a picture of the womb and how the ligaments come through and attach. Okay. Right about here is the cervix. Okay. And of course the fundus. So this, let me think, let's see. This uterine tube is basically the fallopian tube, okay? The ovarian ligament, this ligament here attaches to the ovary, okay? This round ligament comes up, comes upward. It actually leaves the abdominal wall. It leaves the abdominal wall and comes downward alongside the abdominals and then attaches into the pubic bone. So it leaves the pelvic wall and anchors itself into the abdominals and then comes back down into the pubic bone. So so that's a really, really strong ligament, and it's what you'll hear a lot of when pregnant women have that round ligament pain that's really deep in the side of the pubic bone, and it can affect the hips too, because what's pulling in that area as well is a ligament that attaches to the hip. And those ligaments are made of the same material. Ligaments are very strong, and they're made of the same material as scar tissue. It's collagen proteins, you know, and so they're built for protection. They're built for holding things in place. The uterosacral ligament, okay, sacral, that's the sacrum. So this ligament is anchoring the uterus to the sacrum. Your sacrum is your lowest part of your backbone. And then your tailbone, your coccyx, is a little tiny piece at the very end. And your whole entire pelvic floor has webbing that attaches there as well. So sometimes when I'm working on someone's pubic bone, they will feel it directly in their tailbone. It just goes right through, right underneath the pelvis. So understanding that how these ligaments hold the womb in place. This cardinal ligament is a strong ligament that anchors into the pelvis on both sides. The anterior ligament, this one attaches into the pubic bone and the ilium. So the ilium is basically the hip, the front of the hip. When any of these structures have scar tissue, and like I was saying before, the pulling, right? So the scar tissue is building, it's knitting, and it's pulling, and it's knitting. It will pull on these areas, right? And so what'll end up happening is you'll get a uterus that's tilted in different directions. I've worked with women that have had their uterus is not only tilted but twisted. So their uterus was literally twisted backwards and leaning against their colon, you know, things like that. So the scar tissue, not just from C-sections, but the difference between, okay, you heard me speak about scar tissues and adhesions. The difference between scar tissues and adhesions is that adhesions are more internal and are not directly related to trauma. Chronic overuse and repetitive use trauma. Okay, so that's like, what that means is that you literally force yourself to work through pain, right? Blunt force trauma, like punched in the stomach, you know, things like that. Like I said, infection, ignoring internal issues. So when you're ignoring internal issues and you've got you've got infection and repetition, your body will sometimes eventually take care of it, but that will build scar tissue and adhesions inside, okay? And radiation therapy. So radiation therapy will absolutely cause those adhesions to cause the layers of your tissues to stick together. So, and then the scar tissues are typically invasive procedures, surgeries, cuts, contusions. Contusions is a really hard blunt force injury that that will literally smash your skin against itself. But sometimes there's no blood. Sometimes there's no there's just bruising, really intense bruising. One time I went horseback riding and the horse shoved me into a tree, and I had a contusion there that turned into cellulitis. And so I still have scar tissue there that I work on, and you know, it gets itchy, and that's a good sign when you feel that itchy feeling when you're doing healing work. You're helping it heal. So something to understand too, that I'm not sure if many people have heard about, even if you've heard about scar tissue and adhesions, that we all have different skin types. And so different skin types heal differently. And so you'll have, there's watery types of skin, oily types of skin, dry skin, and different shades of skin too. So what we do know is skin with more myelin tends to keloid, which is the thicker scars. But that doesn't mean anything's wrong. What's more important to pay attention to is if your scar after a year of healing is cold or hot, you know, or let's call it a little bit closer to the healing time. So say let's say 4 to 6 months. You're more or less back to your routine. You're back to doing ceremonies. You're back to running and all these things, but somehow your scar keeps real hot and tender to the touch, or your scar is cold. That means that you've got some work to do, and that scar is it will lead you to pelvic issues, or will cause pelvic issues. So so it's important to take care of that. So does anybody have a cold or a hot scar right now? Not really. Anybody have any cold scars? It's easy to have cold scars in the winter time, you know, because we're trying to keep ourselves cool or warm, you know. So, you know, then that goes to the teachings I have is how, oh, you have it in your knee. Yeah. Well, when you have cold knees and cold scar tissue in your knees, that means you have constriction in your pelvis down to that knee. Okay, so when you if you were to have it in your ankles are cold, your feet are cold, your knees are cold. Sometimes you'll have cold patches on the sides of your thighs or different things. Um, a lot of times that is specifically coming from your pelvis. And one of the best ways to take care of that is to wrap your pelvis. People who aren't used to wearing rebosos or traditional belts, traditional wraps, um, you can cut a t-shirt, and all you do is you want to cut off the top part of the t-shirt. You can cut off the top part of the t-shirt and then push that t-shirt down over your hips and over your jeans, and it just looks like you have like a long tank top on or something. But you're actually wearing that to keep your hips warm. And when you're keeping your hips warm, it will help your knees. It will help your um, it will help the blood supply that's traveling back up from your feet. It'll help that blood supply get warm faster, because that's the problem that's happening too. Is that when your blood is coming back up your legs, your womb has to work harder because there's cold blood surrounding that area. Okay, and so that's what's happening with the cold scarring too. I want to get back to that question about the C-section. So that's part of what I just mentioned. Wrapping your pelvis with a scarf or a shawl, or like I said, cutting the T-shirt like a somewhat of a fitted T-shirt and wearing it around your hips. I really like that technique because that goes for any size. It goes for any size. Because what I came across is that, I'm trying to help my my relatives, wrap their pelvises, but they're 250 pounds or 300 pounds sometimes, and trying to get a belt around that. I'm like, come on, guys, we got to figure something else out because you got to keep these hips warm. So we came up with T-shirts, and so you can just cut a T-shirt and wear it around your hips to keep your hips warm. And you do it every day. You don't just do it once in a while, or you do it every day, especially in the winter. Keeping your hips warm every day during the winter is one of the best things that you can do. And pretty much in all of our cultures, if you start looking around, we have these traditional belts that we used to wear. And sometimes I wonder about the teachings, because I see people only wearing them around their belly button, and that's a different teaching compared to wearing something around your hips to keep your hips warm. So we've lost so much of our womb teachings and our womb knowledges. And so sometimes when I see these things and I see, oh, they have a belt, I'm like, how are they wearing it? Like, where does it, is that how you're supposed to wear it? But if I start talking about womb stuff, people are like, oh, it's not something you just really talk about, I feel like I'm that, have y'all heard of that lady, the Long Island medium? I feel like I'm the Long Island medium when I see people. I'm like, you could really use a womb wrap. And they hug me. Thank you. How could you tell? No. Yes, girlfriends, whenever I'm around you, I'm always sizing you up. So I try not to, because it feels invasive. I feel like I'm looking at your body, trying not to look at it. The cells medium. Oh my God. Chukshawn medium. She'll make you wear a belly belt. I knew what you meant, cells. No more ice drinks. Yes, thank you, Rianne. Mwahaha. Yes, okay, so ice drinks is a modern thing. it's something that I don't know. It's, if you want to call it privilege, if you want to call it entitlement, if you know you want to call it all of those things, because down in this way we didn't have cold beverages, and but we sure had pioneers who came and people who came who brought their little freezers, and then they had their ice that they would share with each other, and and now it's widespread that everyone drinks with ice. So what happens when you drink with ice? It cools down your esophagus and cools your blood and cools your stomach and cools all those necessary elements that you need to digest, that you need to heal. And so your body has to work overtime um, to have these natural processes be intact, you know. So sometimes when I have diabetic clients, I'm like, you know what? Add some warm water to your life. Stop drinking cold beverages. You know, I'm not even talking about the soda. Just stop drinking cold beverages. Give your body that opportunity to just give your body that. You know, just give your body that one opportunity to not have to work that hard. But it was funny because I was listening to the radio one time, and they were they were saying like, ooh, a great weight loss technique is to drink cold water. I was like, oh yeah, because your body has to work harder. You know, you have to burn calories, and your body has to work harder to drink that cold water. But it's not helping you. It's not helping your system. It's not gonna actually help you lose weight, because when you have a balanced system is when you lose weight. You know, so keeping that balance there. So yes, okay. Rian says, yes, I hear the elders say after giving birth to keep the uterus warm, also the back. Yes, keep your back warm. If you ever feel a cold draft on your back, get away from it. Get away from the cold draft. Um, you know, I'm sorry, I'm like thinking of jokes. I gotta stop. Stay on track. Something cold standing behind you. Get away. So Rocio knows what I'm talking about. um, so yeah, you know, just get those drafts. Stay away from those drafts that are going to keep your back and your womb cold. Those are ways to help your C-section scarring. You know, another thing that you can do that we can all do together right now is we can do a. I'll just go right into that right now. Is a scar meditation, and if you can, if you want to, or you could just follow along, just listen. What I'm going to have you do is start just by taking some breaths. And wherever your scar is, maybe you had breast reconstruction, maybe you had, you know, maybe you had an appendectomy, and maybe you had some sort of pelvic surgery, and you've got more incisions than just a C-section. Hold your hands over one of those scars. You know, if you've got one up high, down low, you know, hold your hands over those scars. And, you know, acknowledge those scars. Take 3 deep breaths. Go ahead and take 3 deep breaths with your hands over your scar. And thank your body for taking care of you and for healing. Try not to go to that place of, it was my only choice, or I didn't know what else to do. Why me? Let those thoughts just come and go. You know, let them pop up and let them go. To help these scar tissuing heal and to help your body to continue to heal, use language like thank you, I'm grateful for the work you've done. And we're going to try something new because something is stuck. And talk to your waters that way. Talk to your waters. There's water deep within your membranes, deep within each cell, and in between the cells and in between the fibers of the scar tissue, there's water there, waiting for direction, waiting for you to tell it, waiting for you to talk to it in a good way, in a grateful way. Go ahead and take 3 more deep breaths and just send that acknowledgement into your scar. And on the next breath, I want you to notice how whether your hands were cold or whether they were warm, they're starting to match the temperature of your body. That your hands and your body are becoming one. And 3 more deep breaths. Tell that water that, that you love, that the water is there. Tell that water that it can flow and it can move. Give your water permission to move out any inflammation, any cold. Tell your water that it's okay to change the pattern, that it's a new time. It's a new time of healing. And go ahead and take another deep breath. And if you're getting uncomfortable with the position you're in, go ahead and shake out your arms and then bring your hands back. Maybe you have another scar that you just thought of. Go ahead and hold your hands over that scar. And 3 deep breaths again. Acknowledge with gratitude. Thank you for coming. Thank you for all the work that you've done so far. Thank you for bringing my babies. Thank you for helping me heal my family. Thank you for leading me to this talk today. Thank you for deep ancestral wisdom. Thank your ancestors. Thank your people. Remember who you are in that order. 3 more deep breaths. Go ahead and let your hands hang down, relax. And take another breath and open your eyes if your eyes are closed, or back. Shake it off, shake it off. So this image we have here, I was in solidarity with Standing Rock, and you know, I really love this image because what you can't see very well is that the water is flowing to and from her feet and to the river below too. So there's that connection of the water never stops, you know. And when we can talk to our waters, that healing process is very profound and very powerful. And I wore these earrings to these big old door knockers in honor of the hoop, in honor of that that never-ending cycle of the water, you know, taking care of the water's taking care of us, and we're taking care of the water by doing meditations like this, and by having talks like this, and by including our ancestors like that too, you know. So see your water this way. See your water, how it connects you to creation, and connects you to the rain, and connects you to your womb and down into the earth, and see your water that way. And another thing I like about this is that little light in the palms of those hands there too. Is it, you take that light and that water and touch your body where you need healing, you know, and talk to it and thank it. You have to use gratitude, because when you start saying those things like, oh, you know, why, or you know, it's stepping back, because you're going into the past. You know, you're going into the past, and when we're in ceremony, we go in that sacred circle. We don't go back. You know, we go in that sacred circle like that. And so, you know, understanding where you came from, and understanding what happened and how to move forward. You know, and that's what I love about VBACs. We can move forward. We can do those. We can have a vaginal delivery after a C-section, and there's more and more understandings. You know, Rhonda was telling me today how she does VBACs all the time, and it just makes me I feel a buzz when I hear that, because I had my son at 39 and my daughter at 41, and with my son, they were diagnosing him enormous baby, and that I wouldn't be able to deliver him without invasive measures. And he did have a heart murmur. And so, you know, Patricia and I talked about it. I talked about it with my family. I talked about it with the midwives, and spent some time in prayer. And I chose to go ahead with the C-section. And after that surgery, two different doctors came and apologized to me, because he wasn't even 9 pounds. And so I could have delivered him. And so that really inspired me to make sure I did a VBAC with my daughter. And it was about a little over 24 hours of labor, maybe 25, 26 hours of labor. And we had a successful, beautiful VBAC, no intervention. I wouldn't let him sweep my membranes. I wouldn't let him pop my water. I was like, nope, this baby's coming, and I'm gonna give her the time she needs. And I'm glad I did, because what I'm understanding about my daughter is that she's very introverted and can come across really shy, but she's just careful, you know. And I realized that I was taking care of that for her. You know, I was taking care of that for her. And so I'm really glad that I did that, you know, and I'm really glad that I had someone to speak with, like Patricia, like my sisters that had birth knowledge, you know. I don't know if Amita's here. I don't see her. She was my doula. But I had, I knew how to advocate for myself, you know, and I knew I had knowledge. I knew that I didn't have to do anything the hospital wanted me to do, no matter if I had to sign paperwork or not. I knew my rights, and so I followed through with that, and so we had a successful, beautiful VBAC at 41. You know, I had to retrain all the midwives at our center there because they were calling me geriatry pregnancy. And I said, you can call me advanced maternal age, but if you use geriatry one more time, them are fighting words. And, you know, it's a medical terminology, but, you know, I was real determined that my babies were miracles and that I knew what I was doing, and I did. You know, I followed through with that. And so I had a successful VBAC after my C-section with my son. And so I'm here to speak to that too, you know. So so, you know, healing is healing the womb and healing through birth, from birth, you know. I felt changes in my scar, in my C-section scar after my VBAC that were really profound, you know. I felt my scar reawaken. And so through that, I was able to focus on the healing of it too. And to continue with, you know, talking to it and making sure that it felt encouraged and it felt, it was no longer traumatized, you know. And so I felt like that's what happened with my womb too. My womb celebrated that birth and was able to stretch and do what my womb needed to do to get that baby out, and in its own time, you know, in its own time, no rush. And yeah, I was a little bit of a tyrant. I can be kind of stubborn, I'll say. My mom told me 3 months later, you were awful in there. You were just awful. I have no idea what that means. You know, when we advocate for ourselves in the birth space, I really, however your language comes across is what's important, and that you're heard, and however it needs to come across. So I thought that was pretty interesting that I had to have that conversation.
So Traci, I would love to spend, like you started talking about, and I wanted to make sure that we addressed it, about how you felt your scar awaken. And I think that that's one of the things that can be surprising, because, you know, one of the things that we talked about in preparing for this presentation is how, you know, for example, you know, if someone has a belly birth, an abdominal birth, that's the way in which their body opened to let this baby be born, and that the care that's given to so many people is just so minuscule. Is there infection? Is there open bleeding wound? And aside from that, there's just not this next level of like you talked about, of thankfulness, of understanding, you know, the webs that are all within with that scar, that it will exist there for the rest of their life potentially. And then I think that there's the next piece of whether we're talking about planning for a VBAC, planning for a vaginal birth after cesarean, or just feeling healthy and strong in people's bodies, that sometimes, you know, people feel literally just, you know, like you talked about when we were first doing that meditation in the beginning, that heat, sometimes just burning or tearing, sometimes numbness and cold, sometimes just that aspect of them is completely, you know, disconnected from where they are internally, and from the rest of their body. And I wanted to just open up this space that all of those things are okay, and that we experience adhesion, scar tissue, healing, in so many different ways, and that often, you know, as someone's planning a VBAC, there's so many conversations. I mean, someone can have a conversation with their obstetrician about uterine rupture every single time they go to listen to their baby's heartbeat and dream about their birth. And never, ever are there conversations about, you know, how do you heal your whole self? How do you, you know, accept that sometimes when you're changing, that there's, you know, tightness that needs to release, or you know, energy that needs to flood back into an area, and that all of that, you know, can happen simultaneously with your next birth story. And so I just wanted to, you know, before I lost track of that, just, you know, when you're doing body work with people, I share the experiences of working with people at their next birth, you know, or in their postpartum. But I'd love to just see if you could share, when you are working with people doing body work, what kind of sensations and how you hold them. Because my hope is that honestly, anyone, regardless of what kinds of scars they hold on their body, that there's this deeper understanding that those need, you know, attention and love and healing, and that can feel traumatic. It can also feel like a breath of fresh air. But I'm just, you know, because I know you and I've worked with you and I know how well you hold people, you know, I'd love to just see if you can come up with some words to how to create that space.
Yeah, you know, well, gosh, where do I start? It really, one of the things that I would like to mention that takes me back to is the spiderweb teachings. Spider webs, in order for them to be effective, they have to be hydrated. They have to have water, and they're microscopic drops that are within the webbing. Okay, that help that web to be sticky to, you know, carry out its purpose. You know, and so yeah, mamash. Oh, my daughter's trying to show me something. So when we have that hydration in that scar tissue, then we have movement, we have malleability, we have flow, we have blood flow, we ebb and flow, um, uh, just as easily as the ocean, you know, just as easily as the bowl of water. And so, you know, if you can embrace those thoughts and embrace that, those teachings with scar tissue instead of the rigid, you know, the rigid, non-moving rupture, it's going to tear, and it's no. If we can go back to the fluidity of everything within our bodies, the fluidity of that scar tissue, even being able to soften. Because one thing about scar tissue is that, and this has been my experience so far, is that you can't get rid of it without surgery, but you can soften it, but you can stop it in its tracks, but you can talk to it and talk to the water that is deep within those fibers, and continue to keep that soft, like it needs to be for the, you know, for every organ in your body, for your womb to swell with every period, you know, for your womb to swell to carry life, and for it to contract to bring the life down, you know, into this realm, you know. And so it's all going back to talking to that water, and talking to that hydration, holding your hands over your scar, and embracing that teaching. You know, we have what's happened with our modern times is that scarring is ugly. You know, scarring is not looked at in a good way. You know, there's something wrong with you. Oh, your beautiful skin is scarred. All of those things. And so in this modern time, you know, it's triggering in that way that is a perceived threat that that we've taken on and embodied. It's not part of actually who we really are as humanity, you know. And so when being able to understand what that scar did for you, and how it helped you heal, and how it helped you maintain so that you could take care of your 3 other babies after your C-section, is very precious, you know, and that's sacred in itself. You know, the earliest recordings of C-sections are in the Roman times, and I haven't seen anything in the codices, but I've heard talk of C-sections done with obsidian knives, only in times of emergency, absolute emergency, and it wasn't always to save the life of the mother, you know. And so the C-sections that we have nowadays, they've gotten better, right? They've gotten better because they're to help out outcomes, or the perceived outcomes, but then that's overshadowed the our body's intelligence, our ancestral wisdom, our ancestral intelligence, you know. So your water is the same water that's been going through, you know, through all time. You know, your water, just like your, you know, you have your grandmother's eggs, you have your grandmother's water, you know. So that water that's within you is what connects us all together too. And so when you talk to that water in a holy way, you know, you can help soften that scar tissue and keep that remembrance of your ancestral intelligence intact, you know. And so I hope that helps answer that question.
Yeah, and I think I just really want to just say that, you know, healing looks so different for each of us, right?
Yeah.
And also that none of these procedures, you know, like I'll just put forward, and, you know, Patricia was a really big part of this for me, but, you know, my pelvic surgery was it relieved so much pain. And I was so deeply in fear of just the vulnerability of, you know, of a hysterectomy, and but that it relieved so much pain, and that the being able to connect to my energetic womb, and to also let all of that scar tissue and adhesions that were there from prior trauma, that were there, that it was time to have my body let go of it. And so, you know, I also just want to put forward that, you know, of remaking that negative of that scars are ugly, because they're not. Scars are absolutely just proof of healing, and, you know, they are visible manifestations of how our bodies have knitted us back together and are strong, and, you know, and I also thanked that web within. You know, I was working with Usnea, which is, I'm not sure if you have that.
Oh, we do. We have Usnea.
Yeah, but you know, I was working with Usnea, or old man's beard, and, you know, it's such a life. You know, it's actually 3 different species, and, you know, it's such a complicated plant medicine. And I was gifted the teaching of that, when, you know, that we have this Usnea, but that if we really want to do deep healing, and if we want to not just heal the skin or the wound, that we also add spider webs and bear fat, and that use that for the bandage. And I thought about it for a long time, and then I dove down just history of spider webs for medicine, and for, you know, coagulation, and how incredibly strong it is as a tensile, you know, just in tensile strength. And I just started to see, you know, scar tissue in such a different light. And that, you know, sometimes, yes, it is about, you know, softening it or releasing it or moving it. And that also sometimes, you know, like for example, when people are planning a VBAC, I don't want them to visualize, you know, the scar on their womb as being soft. You know, I want them to visualize that they are whole. And that they're strong, that knitted together in such a powerful way, and that, you know, just like the strength of the spider, just like the deep healing that happens, you know, when we combine, you know, all of those different elements. So yeah, and this next question, you know, I think that I've worked with people who, you know, their cesarean was 30 years ago, and it's really powerful healing work for them. And so I'd love, the question is, what is the timeline for scar self-care? I've had my C-section 14 months ago. Is it too late to care for it? What oils, you know, for scarring, things like that you recommend? And I'd love to just hear a protocol that you recommend. But you know, I feel like the amount of, you know, what needs to happen immediately after birth, and then in the weeks and months after birth, and then in the years after, because that's just, it's a part of you now, all definitely has, you know, different elements to it. But yeah, Traci, what are your thoughts in a timeline, as far as for caring for a scar?
Well, my two favorite oils are castor oil and sunflower oil. I've just seen those two really help out in profound ways, and bring warmth to a cold scar, and help calm a hot scar. And so those two oils are the ones that I've been gravitating to the most. You know, you can massage castor oil in along the scar. And then you can use infused versions of those oils as well, you know, infused with comfrey, infused with nettles, even cottonwood leaves are good infusions with those oils. So, but just by themselves, uh, those two I felt have been really beneficial. And so the type of massage that you can do for your scar, and of course, no, 14 months is not, it's nothing. Hi, Claudia, by the way. um, no, you don't have to dilute the castor oil. You just use it right out of the bottle. It's very sticky, so just make sure you have a towel there in case you need. But it is very sticky, and that's what I love about it, because that stickiness helps move your tissues in a very consistent way, where you can get some tensility into the scar tissue, but it's also very gentle. And so, you know, you can do that. So you can, there's something called Effleurage, and then something called Effleurage and cross fiber friction in the massage world, that those two techniques are the ones that you really want to use with C-section scar. Effleurage is more of like the long smoothing strokes, you know, just really moving like that, really, you know, because you're working on the fascia, right? You're working on the scar tissue and working on the fascia. So, you know, long, you know, your long gliding strokes. And back and forth over the scar, you know, massaging upward towards the belly button. You know, you can even include your entire belly, and then also include your, here I can stand up and show you. So, so my pubic bone is about right here. My pubic bone is right here. Here's my hips. And you can just go back and forth across the scar, you know, after doing some intentional setting like we did earlier, you know, just have your hands over your womb, you know, however it feels right to you. And then you can go back and forth over the pubic bone like that, over the scar. And then the cross fiber is more specific. And so cross fiber is when you're going more specifically over the scar, okay? And it literally is movements as small as this, you know, just going over the scar. And then you can even go back and forth over the scar like this. And your scar will get red. It will get red, and that redness means that it's called hyperemia, and that redness will means that blood is coming through. Okay, so what sometimes that can happen too is you'll just see right after it's red, it turns purple. Okay, and as long as it's not cold, as long as it can stay cold, you're heading in a good direction. If your incision is hot, and it can be 20 years after your C-section, if your incision is hot, you want to do more herb compresses, and you don't want to do the cross fiber and just the sweeping back and forth for the you know, to get that fluid to move, you know, into your pelvic area, and your body to digest that fluid and to release that fluid in that area. So you know, of course, with more specific work, I would suggest that reach out to a womb worker in your area, or, you know, I can do phone consults as well. You know, of course, because with more specific things, you know, sometimes you don't want to do things that, of course, that might harm, right? So it's wonderful to do massage, but in some ways you might be harming yourself if you have some underlying conditions. So those underlying conditions can be, you know, cysts and fibroids. Those underlying conditions can be a mild infection that you're not quite aware of, you know. So
so can I just put forward that as far as what I recommend for clients, and if other people have other thoughts to put forward, families that I work with, but I don't like using comfrey until after the skin's fully healed.
yes,
But after it's fully healed, yeah, just because, you know, as people know with comfrey, it does such rapid cell regeneration that you know, it can just close the top before those lower levels are done weeping. And so, you know, same with in a sitz bath, I tend to not do that for deeper tears. But, you know, maybe it's calendula, maybe it's chickweed, maybe it's, you know, after time has passed, I've had people infuse and have a piece of placenta and use that on their cesarean scar. And I also, sometimes when people have specific issues, like I love St. John's wort oil, infused oil, if there's nerve pain. And sometimes that's one that I'll pull out for people that it's been years and they still just have these twinges, you know, and often it's on, you know, it's where the scalpel first met the skin. And you know, when I'm watching people's healing with their scars, because after I'm checking their incisions regularly as a midwife, and I'm seeing their healing process, and you know, it's often that first place where, you know, the body opened, you know, and I can often predict it depending on which side of the table in which right-handed they were on. And but that sometimes that can be some of the most bothersome, is just, you know, not feeling like there is this, you know, that basically it's true. And you know, when people you know, see there was this recent video that a obstetrician or a surgeon of some kind made Play-Doh surgeries with her child, and they were extraordinarily, like, I was like, this is actually really palatable and informative to people, because so often they don't realize the intensity of an abdominal surgery. They see this tiny line that's, you know, maybe they can't even see because it's underneath their belly, and weren't recognizing recognizing, the pulling, the separation of abdominal muscles, that maybe their uterus was, placed on their abdomen, or maybe it wasn't, the level of just cautery and intensity. And so I feel like sometimes when people understand what all happened, and what all was moved and shifted, it makes absolute sense that there was scar tissue there. And so sometimes it's the knitting it back together, that there's just this gaps of energy flow. And I've had people have healing with acupuncture, but I've had a lot of success with the St. John's wort oil for nerve pain, and that just circular massage. And I would do this, months after, potentially. And there was also another question about signs of, ongoing infection. And I feel like people know, and this is people, whether they have, vaginal births or cesarean births, that there are just these, there's this look that you can just see, and how, they're not all the way back, and it looks different than fatigue. It looks different than exhaustion. It looks like that they are still with one foot in the other doorway. And so I'm whether maybe that was that a bit of placenta has been retained, or maybe it's that they have, a continued infection. But I seldom see that on the skin, at this point. It's just so much deeper in the body. And sometimes people will have an evaluation, maybe even check for what their white blood cells are doing, and there's nothing there, but we still just do an immune support, an immune, adrenal, just life support intensive things. And maybe it's bone broths, maybe it's immune support herbs, maybe it's a combination of multiple different things, but that then they tend to just feel better, and after just focused support for their immune system. And I also think that the placenta is just, it separates so differently after a cesarean, and especially for people who have had multiple cesareans, it can just be increasingly difficult to do that separation. And yeah. And so, I think that it's just more common. And if people have had a long, hard birth, maybe they, had their waters, their amniotic fluid has some infection, maybe there's thick meconium, or, all of these other things, then I'm going to be, we know that if someone has had, that story for their labor and also a cesarean birth, that they're particularly at risk, and they might just fight low-level infection for months, for certain. And yeah, Patricia wrote the marigold flowers, that calendula, yeah, goldenrod, hypericum, the St. John's wort, all of those are really, really just beautiful plants that I think are going to be unique, depending on what's going on with someone. So I don't just do a one formula. I keep my herbal oils in individual bottles.
Yeah.
Because what is right for each person is going to be different.
Well, I thank you for mentioning that too, because that's something I get kind of protective about too, is that each, like you're saying, each woman or each person has particular needs, and I'm the same, where I'll give each person will have a different formula, and each person will use a different oil. Maybe can mute you. Maybe can muted you.
Sorry.
You guys haven't seen each other since she was tiny, Traci.
I haven't even seen her. I just barely found out she was pregnant. Or no, wait, were you pregnant when I last saw you? Oh, beautiful. Oh, anybody else have babies? Look, there's Nina.
She kind of joins us each one, and then we're like, wait, all we want to do is, she's so happy to wave to the screen.
Oh, she does that. She loves the wave. Oh, she's very social.
So I did change the setting to allow participants to unmute themselves. So I see people are writing in the comments, and I did just want to let you know that you're free, or it is, if you want to speak your question or your comment, that's also invited.
Oh, I also wanted to mention foods that I like to encourage with C-sections and with surgery repair. Well, the hydrating foods. The hydrating foods I like to use are okra, any kind of stems of leafy greens, celery, bok choy, fennel bulbs, and cabbage are my favorites. Cactus fruits. I know some cultures have don't eat cactus, but cactus is a very hydrating food. Keep those membranes hydrated. Zucchini and cucumbers too. Those are all wonderful things to include in your diet. And then I would say that as far as any foods to avoid after surgery, anything that would cause you and inflammation or anything you're allergic to or intolerant to, just stay away from it. And so we know that sugar, carbohydrates, salt, alcohol beverages, and you know, your typical nitrates can also cause inflammation and will impede scar tissue healing. And so and then stay away from those allergens. If you're even intolerant or mildly allergic to nuts and dairy, gluten, shellfish, acidic fruits, even, and fish, just stay away from them in that time that your body is knitting and healing. So like I said, anything that you know that you are particularly get inflamed with, stay away from until your healing is done. And if you start an intentional healing process, say you are 20 years out from your Leticia, if you're 20 years out from your pelvic surgery and you're starting an intentional process, you know, remember these things, you know, and these are things that are, if you look up any diet, a non-inflammatory diet, these are the lists that that you'll see, as far as the sugar, carbs, you know, all of that, nitrates. So that was one thing I forgot to add is food medicine, the food medicine part. So. Okay.
And someone wrote about just allergies to fruits and veggies, and you know, so I'm automatically going to you know, just bone broths and
yes,
yeah,
bone broths, organ meats.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not vegan, and you know, I'm really a big fan of organ meats and bone broth, too. Those are our traditional foods, you know, the bone stews, and the organ meats, fish head, yeah.
So how about we just do, because I want to put forward what we would really hope for, that every new family that births their baby through this other way, you know, what we would put forward and dream for them as far as how to take care of them and nurture them and set up a plan for healing and self-care for them. So foods, we talked about, you know, feeding our families, you know, and the healing that,
well,
you know,
there's daily practice. You know, daily practice is important because, you know, just like little ones, they thrive on routine. And so this is one thing I talk about a lot with moms, is that when you can find a way to fit in this routine for yourself, you will find a way to fit in the routine for yourself, you know, even if it's just even if it's just one of these things. So so on the daily, you know, if there's on the daily, the no heavy lifting. On the daily, make the changes to your routine to help your body rest and recuperate, you know, to digest and heal. You know, those are traditional ways that we would take time out of our day. You know, I remember my grandma, you know, taking time out of her day, and she, you know, and then even my cousins, they're, oh, you're always rushing around, you know. It's like, you know, take that time out. However you can carve that time into your day, even if it's 2 to 3 minutes of meditating with your hands over your scar or your hands over your heart, you know, take that time out. um, so I'd like to just encourage you to take that time out for yourself like that, um, to reflect on this conversation, and include, you know, continue to include healing foods into your life and the things that you've been wanting to do. You know, because once we get to talking about scar tissue, that means that something's been going on for a long time or something happened, right? This isn't a conversation that just pops up. You know, this is an intentional conversation, and so it's very intentional that you all are here tonight. And so, um, you know, taking that one step further of, oh, I've been wanting to do that. You know, I've been meaning to do that. You know, write it down and keep it close to you, so that even if you forgot about it, it's there reminding you, and when the time is right, it'll come. You know, so I just want to encourage you to do that. That you set that intentional time to be here, and you can do this intentional time. You know, just like we do with anything that's really important to us. You know, we do make that time, and you know, so gently, I want to hold you accountable to your healing process. Gently hold you accountable to creating that time for yourself, because I know firsthand it's not going to happen unless I do it. um, you know, I had an opportunity to massage Oprah when I used to work at this fancy resort long time ago. And I just told her, I said, "Guy, you know, how do you do it? You know, you're so busy and you do all these things. And how do you take care of yourself?" And she says, "I have to make the time. I have to do it. I put it in my schedule. I put it in my calendar, and I commit to it like I would a doctor's appointment." I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I saw that episode." But you know, that conversation inspired me, and you know, I was in my 30s, maybe late 20s when I talked to her about that. So yeah, I gently want to hold you accountable for making that time for yourself. That either daily routine, whether it's eating something good, or taking that time out for that meditation medicine, or the food medicine, or you know, holding your hands over your womb, over your your scar that kept you together. You know, that healed in a good way for you. This is my daughter.
She's beautiful. Okay. Do you feel okay with doing a closing prayer? I can also just stop the recording, and then we can also just, you know, keep saying hi to the babies and things.
I know. I think someone raised their hand. Did someone raise their hand?
I did. I just wanted to, because when someone asked about what do we hope for the whole family, I was just wanting to contribute, and the first thing that came to mind was community resources. It's like when we have more than one child and moving through healing, that sometimes we can forget. And I think that like setting up the resources before having the baby is also like asking for that gentle accountability and giving everybody like the list of things that you know that you need to do for yourself, and then people reflecting that back. And I think that the community resources is really much part of the healing too. Mm-hmm. So that's what I wish for everybody to set up for themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, if you want to go ahead and close, any closing thoughts, and then I'll stop the recording.
Well, I would just like to, is Patricia still here? Did she leave? I think she stepped out. Okay, I would just like to say that I'm really grateful that I got this opportunity to share with y'all and to to be able to express myself like this. I really have a passion for helping people heal their deep wounds and heal their wounds of their body, and so there's so much that comes with that. And our different cultures and the ways in which we have to do that, and to some of us are blessed to have our ceremonial communities, and some of us feel very alone. So I really appreciate each and every one of you for being here tonight, and taking this time out, because these deeper healings are gonna keep needing to happen. And the surgical way of taking care of women is very prominent, especially within brown communities, and so to continue to have these conversations, I feel will just continue to ripple out and help people advocate for themselves. And thank you for mentioning the community support too. That's one thing that I really try hard to impress on my people that I do birth work with is, you set that up for yourself. Reach out, look into your community. Here's some resources, and we can do this. So again, I say thank you for everyone for allowing me to speak tonight and to share my thoughts and what little I know. From the past several years of trying to help people out. So thank you.